Hey everybody, it's Mom with Two Wife of One, and welcome back to my channel. Ding, 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 ding. Thank you guys for clicking on this video. I thank you for all those who have subscribed to my channel. That means the world to me. If you have not subscribed to my channel, feel free to do it anytime during the course of this video. Feel free to go back and look at past episodes, because if you looked at the title of this video and clicked on it based on the title, then you know that we're here to talk about Married at First Sight. Last night, well, we're in season 13. Last night was episode 13. And the title of the episode was Tears, Jeers, and 25-cent Martinis. Now, I'm not going to go through the spiel of what the show is about. Like I said, you can look at past episodes. You can start all the way at season 13, episode 1, to learn about the people from this season, to learn about my predictions, and just to learn about, what the show is about and how it moves and shakes and all that stuff. So this episode, all the couples are less than 3 weeks away from decision day. So at this stage, 2 of the experts, Dr. Pepper and Pastor Cal, meet with all of the couples individually to find out where they are, to encourage them to ask any lingering questions, because they want all of the individuals to go into decision day having having full knowledge of the person that they are choosing, so that they're making an educated decision on whether or not they want to stay married or get divorced. So I think it's a great thing to do. Like, I'm not opposed to this part of the process. What I am opposed to is that this is, I don't know how many episodes in a row this has happened, but this is another episode where they all got together and played volleyball. And the couples are getting together way too freaking much. And it's like, on one hand, one of the one of the wives was like, oh, well, I think it's so great to get with them so I can see where they are and they're married, and it can make me feel better about where I am with mine because I know I'm not alone. It's like, or it can make you feel bad that you're not as far along as the other people are. Like, I feel like, in some sense, okay, maybe this works, but in another sense, like, this isn't really helping you at all. So it's that's a whole nother story. So I'll get to that later. But basically, each individual met with Pastor Cal and Dr. Pepper to talk about some fears they still have, some questions that still need to be answered, some struggles they're still having, and the experts basically kind of nudge them into questions they should ask their spouse, things they should kind of put all out there on the table, so that way decision day comes, they can say with certain clarity yes or no. So we're going to start with Mirla and Gil, because not a lot happened with them. I love the fact that Mirla was drunk when she met with Dr. Pepper, because she was just so nervous. And it is the first time that we see Mirla kind of laugh out loud and be a little loose and just like, hey, Dr. Pepper, hey. But I like that even in her state of not being completely sober, she was still very much aware of what's going on with Gil and how much she really likes him, and she feels like she won the lottery, and she actually cried when she talked about him. Now, I don't think she would have cried if she had been sober, but I like that she is so open and honest with how much she really loves this man and how much she appreciates him being patient and appreciates the way he treats her, and she's just on cloud 9 with everything. But Dr. Pepper warned her, like, okay, I'm so glad you're happy with him, but you may want to kind of check your negativity, because that's his main complaint about her, that sometimes she'll have this attitude where she just doesn't want to do things, or she's uncomfortable, so she's pouting and kind of acting like a child. And Pastor Cal told Gil that. He was like, well, if you have these issues with her, maybe talk to her about, okay, what can I do to help you when you're in those particular moods? Work with her, because she's used to other men probably not really saying anything and kind of letting her get her way, just to kind of err on the side of caution. And Gil's a little stronger than that, and he's like, nah, I don't like that. And when she gets in those attitudes, it affects my mood. And so what I love is that Gil and Mirla, and some of the other couples like this too, but Gil and Mirla never shy away from these kinds of conversations. So right after meeting with Dr. Pepper and Pastor Cal, they met at a restaurant, bar, or whatever, and sat down, and Gil immediately got to it, like, okay, so what can I do to help me get into those moods? It affects my mood, and I don't really like that, and tell me what I can do more of. And she was like, okay, now what can I do? And I just love that they really care about each other. I think you can clearly see with this particular couple that they care about each other's feelings. They're really trying to work hard on things, and they're really genuinely listening to each other. And it's really refreshing to see, because unfortunately with the other 4 couples, we don't see that often. So with Mirla and Gil, I feel like they've had a natural progression of their relationship. We've been able to see them as strangers, see them kind of navigate things, see them have these awkward conversations, and then slowly we're seeing both of them really fall for each other. And it's really beautiful to see, because this is what the show is supposed to be about, is watching two individuals who don't know each other come together, learn about themselves through this process, and find love at the end of the rainbow. That's the whole point. So I'm glad that Meryl and Gil are having that moment. They're still, for me, the main couple that I think is going to make it. I really like them. We're going to move on to Rachel and Jose. They're boring now, but I want to say this. There's possibility for everybody to change, right? I don't want to discount people who have had fresh revelation and who have had a mirror, put up to their face, and they're like, oh, I am like that. I don't want to be like that. I want to change. I think that there is something to that, but I feel like it takes a while, right? You can be told on Tuesday that, hey, you're a controlling person. And if you're however old you are, let's say you're 30, you've had 30 years of being controlling without really knowing that you're controlling. So getting that revelation on Tuesday doesn't mean that by the next Tuesday you're fine, you're not controlling anymore. It takes some time to really understand what people are telling you, to understand your behavior, to understand your reaction to things. And you have to marinate on that a little bit. And again, I don't want to assume that Jose is not going to change. I don't want to assume that the next time they get into some kind of argument, he won't continue to spew really nasty, hateful things to her. I don't want to assume that. But you just never know. So I understand her being cautious, but I like the way she saw the situation. Because I think to the naked eye, it looked like, oh, she's bringing up the fact that he locked her out of the house again, and I thought they were past it. But it wasn't so much the incident. It was, what was it about that situation that led him to have that reaction? So I love that she was asking a deeper question about, okay, something triggered him in that moment. What was that trigger? We need to discuss that so that I can make sure that I don't do that trigger again. So I love that she kind of saw beyond that. And even with Jose, he was like, I don't like the fact that, when things got rough, she immediately was like, okay, well, I'm going to leave and I don't want to be married to you anymore. Which I think is a very valid concern of his, because he's, obviously when you get married, whether it's through the show or in real life, you're not getting married with the intention of getting divorced from that person right away or running away when things get tough. Like, you're getting married to this person with the intention that I'm going to be married to you for the rest of my life, or at least for the next 50, 60 years, whatever comes first. So I understand his concern about that as well, and I think that there's nothing she can really do to ensure she's not going to leave, other than telling him, I'm going to do my best to, work with you, to talk through my feelings, to make sure that I'm open and honest the whole way through. And I think by being open and honest the whole way through, when things do get rough, they're able to just continue to have these conversations as opposed to it blowing up into something bigger. Because that was one of the issues when they did have their blow up, that she had all this pent up emotions and concerns and fears, and she was writing them down on her phone so she can kind of hold on to them later, but not really discussing with him in real time. So when she did start discussing it, it threw him off guard, and he probably felt cornered. And of course, you're going to put your guard up if you feel like somebody is basically aiming at you and spewing all of the stuff that's wrong with you. Like, nobody really reacts well to that. So I'm hopeful that they're going to work things out. I don't know if I necessarily want them to work things out, but it's not my business. I'm not the one married to him. But I'm going to say that Jose and Rachel probably have a decent chance as long as they continue to talk about things. And as long as they're both committed to making adjustments in the way they handle certain situations. Now we're going to go to... So can I say, I can't stand these last three couples. I really cannot. So I don't even know who to start with, because I really don't want to talk about none of them. But we'll start with Brett and Ryan. Ryan has never tried in this marriage. And the fact that Dr. Pepper had to bring that to his attention, he was like, oh, yeah, well, I told Dr. Pepper, hey, you're going to see a brand new Ryan in these next few weeks. Are you going to see me trying like never before? And I wanted to... Dr. Pepper is not who you needed to say those words to. Yes, you have not tried. Yes, Dr. Pepper had to bring that to your attention that you haven't tried, which I don't understand how you don't see that. But he also never said he has tried. He just said, I've been going through the motions, I've been showing up, and my heart's just not in it. So you haven't really, really given it a solid chance to get to know this woman and to find out why you were matched with her and what she can possibly bring to your life and what you can possibly bring to her life. He never tried to do any of those things. So the fact that Dr. Pepper brought his attention is like, okay, that's great, now you understand it. But making all these promises to Dr. Pepper that, yeah, you're going to see, I'm gonna be a good boy, you'll see. No, you need to be saying that to your wife, who has been showing up every day and who has been trying. You need to be telling her, I realize that I have not been showing up like I need to. I promise I will do a better job of showing up for you and showing you the kind of man I can be. That's what needs to happen. And I feel like Ryan has the same issue as Johnny, where they are just expecting to come into this experiment and the women just fall all over them and do all this great stuff for them, and they just kind of sit there and be like, oh, this is great, now I have my person. Neither one of them really came into this realizing that they were going to have to put work in. And it's not even because it's married at first sight, it's because in general in a marriage you have to put work in. Both people have to do something, have to sacrifice something, have to give up something, have to compromise something in order to make the other person feel comfortable, feel good, feel happy, or whatever. And I feel like neither Ryan nor Johnny really had that in their mind when they signed up for this. So now they're in the situation not really liking, well, I'll take that back. Ryan's never said he doesn't like Brett. I think he likes her as a person. He's always said, I like her. She's super sweet, very thoughtful. She's this, she's this, she's this. At least he can talk about all the things he does like about her. But his thing is, but there's no connection. And I'm not feeling this, and I'm not feeling that. And da, 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 da. It's like, but you ain't trying, bruh. She's doing everything. She's really trying hard to get to know you, to forge this relationship with you. But it's hard for her to want to keep trying when she sees that she's being met with a brick wall every single time. So I'm hoping at some point he, talked to Brett and was like, I promise I'm going to show up more, or whatever, whatever, whatever. But one thing I noticed, and he said this last week, that he doesn't have these deep conversations with her about what's not working for him or what's missing for him. He doesn't talk about that stuff with her because he doesn't want to hurt her feelings. Now, obviously, that's not a good thing because she's basically being left in the dark. And I don't know if she's thinking she did something wrong. I don't think she is. But a different person may try to put the blame on themselves, like, what am I doing wrong? He's not happy. Am I not cooking enough? Am I not being nice enough? Am I not hugging him enough, or whatever? And if that person isn't giving you any feedback at all, you're going to start creating these scenarios in your head of what you are and are not doing correctly. And that could cause a lot of self-doubt. That could cause some self-hatred. And that just causes the rift, not the rift, but I guess the distance between you and that person to grow and grow and grow if nobody's saying anything. But one thing I picked up on last night is that Ryan is just as bad as Brett is just as bad as Ryan when it comes to talking about things, because Pastor Kyle told her to ask Ryan specifically, when did this marriage, how did he phrase it? Basically, Pastor Kyle was telling Brett, you need to ask Ryan when he stopped caring about this marriage, when he mentally checked out of this marriage. Find out at what point that happened, and maybe you guys can kind of retrace your steps to figure out how to get back to where you guys were on the wedding day and on the honeymoon when things were great and you guys were laughing and you were just laying in bed talking all day, and all of a sudden that stops. So, but she didn't want to, broach that subject. And I don't know if it's because she just wasn't ready for the answer or because she just felt awkward around it. And I think part of the reason she may have felt awkward is because they haven't had these deep conversations for pretty much the entirety of their marriage. Even when they were on the honeymoon and chit-chatting, I don't think they were talking about necessarily deep stuff, because all the times they got together with the couples, which is every episode, the other couples will talk about, like, yeah, well, he and I have had the rough conversation about finances, and then he and I had a rough conversation about housing and this, like, deeper things beyond the 6 or 8 weeks. And Brett and Ryan, had to realize, like, oh, we've never talked about those things. And so if you've never had those kind of conversations with someone, and now the clock is ticking and you have less than 3 weeks to make this decision, now you don't know how to broach that conversation because you never had it in the first place. But somebody has to step up and say, hey, I know we haven't talked about this, but let's figure this out. Because literally they're both just living in the moment of these 8 weeks and just kind of showing up every day waiting for the 8 weeks to be over. Neither of them, at least as far as I can see, have talked beyond these 8 weeks, have talked about what do you want from this marriage and where do you see us living. They have not had that discussion at all. And at least, I know Rachel and Jose have talked about it. Mirla and Gil, I know, looking for a place. Zach and Michaela are all over the place, so they don't really count. And Bow and John don't really count either. But yeah, I don't know if it's because they haven't had the conversation because none of them see it going beyond the 8 weeks. That's my assumption. But it's kind of weird. And I don't dislike Ryan. I really like Brett. And actually, Brett said the realest thing ever when all the couples were together and they played sand volleyball. She said, what did she say? She said, some people view this as a real marriage and some people don't. And I thought that was the realest statement that anybody has made on this show, because it's true. Some people come in here thinking about, this is my husband, this is my wife, this is the person I'm gonna be with the rest of my life. And some people are like, well, this is my person for 8 weeks. Let me figure out what I want to do beyond that, and keep it pushing. And she's absolutely right. And I think it's very clear who, where each person lies on which side of the fence. I think it's very, very clear. Don't see them making it. They're not going to stay together, because why would they? Okay, I get to Michaela and Zach. They are so immature. Both of them are immature. And I don't want to say I know I give a lot of flack to Zach. I feel like I have given flack to Zach. He deserved it, though. But I've never shied away from the fact that Michaela is also immature and petty. In this episode, they were both really, really immature. And it's like, y'all childish. And he's 27, she's 30. So in hindsight, that's not that old, I guess. But it's like, you haven't learned anything in these, because at this point it's been 6 weeks. You haven't learned anything in 6 weeks. So basically, she met with Pastor Cal, Zach met with Dr. Pepper. I like that Zach did get a fresh revelation, and, he broke in tears like it normally does. But I like that his revelation was that he's a perfectionist, which I think he already knew. But what he didn't know was that he was putting those unfair expectations onto Michaela and onto other people around him. And that's why his past relationships haven't worked out, because he's expecting them to be perfect, just like he expects himself to be perfect. So I like that he got that fresh revelation, and he understood why that is so unfair to Michaela. She is such a great girl, and I'm putting this unfair stuff on her. She doesn't deserve that. So it's like, good for you, Zach. I'm so glad that you got some fresh clarity, and I think that he needs to go into therapy just for that particular issue, because that is, a big thing. And so to realize that during this process is great, but just having that one session with Dr. Pepper isn't going to be enough for him to get that out of his mind. So I think, and highly encourage him, if he hasn't already, to go into therapy for himself, just to kind of deal with that particular issue. Just my opinion. And then Pastor Cal asked Michaela, do you want this more than you don't want it? And she didn't answer, but she was like, I just want happy Zach back. Like, I just want him to be happy, and then we can be happy together. And Pastor Cal was like, well, okay, but you need to help him be happy. Well, it shouldn't depend on me. I want him to be happy outside of me. And I thought this was an interesting thing, because she also said, like, I don't want the responsibility of, like, making him happy. You're in a marriage, babe. Like, this is, and not saying that she's the only thing that can bring him happiness. And I think some single people, that's what they heard when she made that statement. It's probably what she thought as a single person too. Like, oh, I don't want it to just revolve around me. It's not that it revolves around you. It's just adding to the equation. My husband is very, very happy when he's talking on the phone to his uncle, when he's watching his sports, especially if his team is winning, when he is bowling, when he plays poker. He has all these things that make him happy. And when he comes home, he's able to get a hug from his wife. He's able to get a kiss from his wife. His wife is taking him to places occasionally. His wife sometimes is snuggling up with him, watching a movie. So those things are still bringing him joy. They're bringing him peace. They're bringing him happiness. That doesn't mean that if you take me out of the equation, he's no longer happy. He still has all these other things that make him happy, but his wife is adding to his happiness. And that's what is supposed to happen in a marriage. And, I'm glad that she sees that now. But I thought that was a really interesting way that she was looking at things. I thought that was kind of a little strange, to be honest. And then, gosh, so they talked, okay. So they get home. I'm assuming this is the same day that they met with the experts, maybe the day after, whatever. They get home, and I don't know why Zach continues to ask this question, but because he's asked this question before, but he asked her, if decision day was tomorrow, what would you say? They asked each other that question. They both said no, which I think is fair, because you just got these revelations from speaking with the experts. You guys know there's still work that needs to be done. So it makes sense that if decision day was tomorrow, you both say no, because you haven't had a chance to work on those things that you just learned about that day. So I think it's fair to say no. I think that's fine. Especially because they both said no. It's like, okay, so we both understand the stuff to work on. She took that as, which I didn't understand, because like, if you said no as well, then why are you getting on him? But she took it as, okay, if you said no, then we need to sleep in separate bedrooms. What's the point of sleeping in the same bed? Like, I don't understand the point. Like, we both said no. But a couple things here. One, she's punishing him for being honest, right? Two, you said no as well, so you understand there's stuff to work on. He didn't say, I'm saying no, regardless on decision day, whether it's tomorrow, 2 weeks, 5 months from now, my answer is going to be no. He specifically said tomorrow. That's the question you both answered. And so, what you should be thinking as a mature person is okay, we both said no for tomorrow. However, we just got information about how we can make this marriage work and things that we still need to put in place. So, yes, tomorrow is going to be no, but let's continue to work on things. So, you really think that sleeping in separate bedrooms is going to aid you guys in working on things. The whole point is to talk more, to have more conversations, to create situations where trust can be rebuilt. Why would you think sleeping in two separate beds is the cure for that? And I don't even think she was thinking that far. She was just thinking like, oh, almost like, let me punish him for saying no and we'll be in separate bedrooms. So I understood him being pissed. But the immature part came when they both pulled out their little individual cameras and were recording themselves having this argument. Because basically, what it seems to me like is it's more about who is winning the argument, who is right, who is wrong. The song put this up. Let me show you how crazy she's being. Let me show you how crazy he is. That seemed to be the focus. It's showing everybody else like, oh, he's talking this and she's talking this and he said, she said, and blah 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 blah. Pulling the cameras out in that moment, I thought was really immature of both of them, because it made it seem like we care more about you guys deciding who's right in the situation as opposed to caring about this conversation and how we're not communicating well in this instance. So he got pissed and was like, okay, we sleep in separate bedrooms, then I'm basically going home. Like, I might as well just go home and be comfortable. It's like, okay, that was immature as well, because from the last time that you left and didn't tell her anything, that it was a trigger for her. And when you guys met with Pastor Cal, he explained to you that, okay, but her father leaving means that she has some issues with abandonment, just a little bit. So with you leaving, that brought those issues and those feelings back to the surface. So that is her trigger, is you leaving. And I'm sure he promised in that moment that I'm not going to leave again. But then what do? You left and you went back home in a fit of anger. So of course that is a trigger for her. Like, why are you doing this? Because you're being immature and petty. But then she went up to him in the pettiness. When he left, she sent him a text message and was like, okay, well, since you're going home, I'm just going to move out of the apartment. So she took all of her stuff out of their shared apartment and went back home to her apartment because he decided to sleep in his old apartment. And I was like, both of y'all make no sense. And then my girl took the seeds. I thought that was really funny because he's on a FaceTime Zoom chat with his brothers, and he's reading the text to them and was like, yeah, she took all of her stuff and went home, and she took all the seasonings. Like, oh, that's just so petty. And I thought it was funny that she took the seasonings when she can't cook. Like, what do you need the seasonings for? You don't cook no food. They both had that conversation that neither one of them knows how to cook. So why would you take the seasoning? That was really funny. But his brother was basically like, it's beyond childish and it's beyond rude that, she did that. I agree that she is very childish. I also think that Zach is immature as well. He's not as mature as he probably thinks that he is. But two immature people together who are just constantly, I don't say constantly snipping at each other. That's not it. But I feel like they made some strides in the way they communicate and the way they express themselves. They were really like gaining some traction there, and now it's all been erased by her doing this. So I understand his point of view a little bit more about, sometimes she's just irrational. Because before, I feel like he kept saying that as an excuse for one incident of her doing something. But then it's like, oh, okay, well now I understand what he's saying. Because all of this could have been handled very differently. She should not have asked to sleep in separate bedrooms. I feel like it was just petty, because it was clear that she was purposely doing that to kind of dig at him. It was very, very intentional. So I just have nothing for her. She not really feeling her, and as fine as Zach is, not really feeling him either. It's like, y'all really don't need to be married. That's the long and short of it. Neither one of you need to be married, whether to each other, other people. Y'all weren't ready for marriage. You just weren't. Now we're going to get to Bao and Johnny. You guys, if you have ever had someone who has gone through emotional abuse, or if you yourself have gone through emotional abuse, then I'm sure that Bao and Johnny, just watching them week after week, is very triggering for you. And I think that On one hand, it's good that this is happening on TV because I feel like some people don't give emotional abuse the kind of attention and sympathy that it deserves. So I'm glad that it's on TV, that people are kind of seeing it face to face and are like, oh, that's what it looks like. Oh, that's how harmful it can be. But on the other hand, it sucks that it's not like this is a TV show with characters. This is a real life person experiencing this from another real life person. So it sucks that Bao has had to, experience this. And I want to be clear, I've never said that Bao is perfect. I would never claim that she's perfect. I don't know her in real life. So it's less about her being this perfect wife or this perfect person. It's not necessarily about that, but it's more about how she shows up in situations and in conversations compared to how Johnny shows up. It's very, very different. When he is complaining or bringing up concerns about the marriage, about things that he needs and things that he feels he's not getting, she listens, she receives the information. She's like, okay, well, I understand where you're coming from. It is kind of difficult for me because I've never done that before, but I'm going to try harder to do this for you. And she makes the effort, and then that's that. When she brings up concerns about something he is or is not doing, she's not yelling. She's being very calm, just like he is when he talks to her, but she's being honest. Because in the first few episodes, we saw them having really open and honest conversations about what they like, what they don't like, what they're observing. And it was all very like, okay, this is good and this is healthy. I'm glad we're talking about it. So that's how she approaches him. No yelling, no cursing, none of that. Just like, okay, well, I really need this from you, and I feel like I'm not really getting it. His reaction is he doesn't hear her. When she complains or brings up a concern or whatever, his immediate reaction is to get pissed off. Almost like, how dare you focus on something so small? Or how dare you have any kind of complaint about what I'm doing when you're not doing blah, 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 blah. This isn't about what she is or is not doing. When you have that issue with her, you talk to her about it. She listens. She, again, absorbs the information and she tries to, fix the issue. But when she does the same to you, you're not hearing her at all, which I don't understand. And I don't understand why you don't see that. You immediately get into your feelings and get all upset. And it's like, why? And I don't even think he's arrogant necessarily. I don't get that vibe from him that he's so arrogant he thinks that nothing's wrong with him. I don't think that's what it is. But I think that he's not concerned at all if anything is wrong with him. It doesn't even register on his radar that he doesn't care if he's a good husband. He doesn't care if he's a good companion or a good partner. He wants to be married, but he's not necessarily concerned about how he's coming off and how she's receiving him. He just wants to make sure she's doing her part. And, which is like, no, that's like in a classroom with little kids, and one little kid is constantly tattling on all the other kids. Like, that person didn't sharpen their pencil, or that person didn't raise their hand, that person did this. It's like, okay, but you also haven't raised your hand, and you also haven't done the assignment, you also haven't done blah, 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 blah. That kid who wants to tattle on everybody else, but they got all this stuff going on in their own thing, because they're so concerned about pointing out everybody else who is wrong, that they're not paying attention to all the stuff that they're doing that is incorrect. Because why would I pay attention to that? That's not important. And I feel like that's how Johnny is. And it's so annoying. Like, it's annoying. He's really hurtful when it comes to Bao. Like, the things he says to her, it's so fascinating to watch, but it's so hard to watch at the same time. It's like, how dare you do this? Like, how freaking dare you? That's really the main thing. How freaking dare you? And I actually put this, all my notes, I write notes of what happened in the show, but then in caps I write like my opinion or questions that I feel need to be answered, and I put in all caps, he is an awful person. That really just sums up what I feel about Johnny. He is legit an awful person. And I also put he's emotionally abusive and she needs to call him out on his BS more. And I also feel like her frustration is finally showing. And I feel like last night she finally started saying all these things that I've been saying, that other reviewers have been saying. And she brought him up on his hypocrisy. And again, she's calm with it. But he basically said to her, I feel like we don't have a strong foundation in trust and in friendship. So I want to take the sex out so we can focus on our friendship, because I feel like we can't really have the physical intimacy if the emotional attachment is not there. Like, that's just how I'm feeling. That's what's going to work for me. This is the same guy that when they first got married, he told her that physical touch is my love language. And physical intimacy is very important to me. I need someone who is going to snuggle with me, who is going to kiss me, who's going to hold me and hug me. I need that physical connection because that's how I feel loved and that's how I feel safe. Now it's I want to take all of that off the table and deal with the friendship because the friendship is not there. And so she's like, during her talking head, she was like, I don't understand why he doesn't understand the hypocrisy of what he's saying because he wasn't saying this 2-3 weeks ago, and now all of a sudden he's flipping. And when Dr. Viviana met with them, Dr. Viviana was talking about how they need to not necessarily increase their physical intimacy, but ways that can increase their physical intimacy, and just things they can do to make sure that part. Because at that point, when Dr. Viviana met with them, they had sex. So it's a matter of making sure we don't lose that. We continue to grow in that area because that will continue to make other areas in our relationship grow. And now he's trying to take that away from her, basically. And, one thing she said was, she was like, so that's what will work for you. He's like, yeah, that's exactly what works for me. I can only talk about me. That's what works for me. And she said, I feel like I'm being forced to do what works for you, which is very true because every time they have a conversation, it's about what she is not doing and how she needs to improve. That's every conversation that they have for the most part about why he's not happy. He's not really in this. I need you to do this. You're not doing this. You say you are, but you're not. Whatever. She's been taking it up to this point and trying to be patient with him and trying to work with him. But she's definitely getting to the point where she's like, no, I can't be silent anymore. Everything we do is all about you and what works for you and what makes you happy. That's all she said. His reaction, and again, it's a matter of how they react to each other. It's not that Bao is perfect, but it's the way she talks to him and the way she reacts to what he says to her. Her saying that to him, he was just like, oh, like, we don't have to do this. And he goes to the bathroom and he's like, oh, Bao. He says to him over and over, like, again, like that, like she's a child, like she's a petulant child. And why don't you get it? And why don't you understand? And oh, what am I going to do with you? And oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing this right now. And it's like, and she's like, I don't understand why you're leaving. I don't understand why you're getting upset. We're just having a conversation. And that's literally all they were doing. And I love how cool and calm and composed she is. But I love that she is getting to that point where she's like, no, we need to talk about this because this doesn't feel right to me. You're not doing right by me. Let's talk about this right now. But in his mind, all he hears is, you disagree with me. How dare you disagree with me? Why wouldn't you want us to have a friendship? Why would you think it's all about sex? And it's like, she said none of that. But he doesn't hear her. So either way, he bothered me so much. They didn't really resolve that. But then they meet with the experts and Bao's like, I am frustrated. I'm kind of to my limit. I don't know how much more I can take. This is what she says before she meets up with Pastor Cal. Johnny met with Dr. Pepper, which I thought was great because he met with Pastor Cal before, and Pastor Cal was like, yo, you're being mean to her. Like, you're being mean. This isn't fair to her. Whatever. And I love when Dr. Pepper visits because she pulls no punches. She gets right to the root of the matter, like, well, yeah, I've seen that, and you're not doing this. And no, you are controlling. And yeah, I don't understand why you're doing it. She's very, like, cut to the chase. Not in a mean way, but just very much like, look, your spouse may not have told you so, but let me tell you what I've observed. You are this, and this. So let's figure out how you can stop doing all of this and be this over here. Love Dr. Pepper. I love all the experts, but I love how Dr. Pepper speaks to these people because they need to hear what she has to say. So she told Bao, well, first of all, told Johnny. Johnny told Dr. Pepper that with her, I'm somebody I don't want to be. I don't want to hear that because you're putting the blame on her. You're not taking any accountability at all. Not 1 ounce of accountability has he taken in the past 6 weeks for the way he's talked to this woman and the way he has treated this woman. All he cares about is how he's being treated in return. That's literally it. But I digress. Dr. Pepper told him that he needs to apologize for things that he said and that he needs to work on their communication. And it's like, okay, I guess I really wish Dr. Pepper had gotten a little deeper. Like she mentioned that, you've said some things to her that have been really mean in the past that were unnecessary. And I feel like the communication needs to be worked on because you guys aren't really listening to each other. She said something along those lines. But I really wanted Dr. Pepper to get a little deeper into Johnny and a little deeper into why he feels like he needs to lash out at her, and why he reacts the way he does when she's talking about the things that she needs, why he kind of dismisses it. I really want her to talk about that, and she didn't, which is okay, because that's what I'm observing. It's like, you son of a, that's okay. And then Bao, she said, this is my other favorite line of the night, when she met with Pastor Cal. She said, I feel like I married a man who was not ready for marriage. Yes, you did. Unfortunately, you did. You married someone who wanted to be married but had absolutely no idea what that entailed. And I've been saying this, I'll say it again, Johnny should not have been on the show. He was not ready for marriage. You don't go from having all these first dates and no real relationships. You don't go from that to now being in the ultimate relationship of marriage. He should not have ever been on the show. Because marriage for him was just having someone to, I can't even, I don't even know what he wants anymore. And in short, Bao probably doesn't know either, because he flip-flops with the stuff that he wants. First, he wants all this physical intimacy. Now he wants to take it off the table. Then he wants you to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, well, now that's basic stuff. I'm not giving you props for that. Now I want you to do this other stuff over here. It's like, you don't know what the heck you want, and you're not concerned at all about giving this woman, your wife, what the heck it is she wants. You don't care. That's not even on your radar, because that's the beauty of having 100 first dates, that all you're having is basically dinner, drinks, going to a show or something with this person that one time. Then you get to go home and you get to swipe right or swipe left to go have another date. You don't have to have any commitment. You don't have to learn that person. You don't have to figure out, and even having all those dates, you also never get the chance to figure out what you may be doing wrong in a relationship. When you're in a long-term relationship, that's when you're able to kind of see your flaws and your faults through the eyes of the person that you're with. And it's never it's not supposed to be harmful. It's supposed to be in love. Like, hey, baby, I love you. But I don't know if you notice, in certain situations when we have these conversations, you tend to be a little condescending. And I don't really like that. I don't appreciate it. I don't think you're doing it intentionally, but I just want to let you know this is how it's coming off. And that's something that you may not even know about yourself until somebody brings it to your attention. But obviously, you're not going to accept it unless it's one person that you know loves you and isn't trying to tear you down. But if you're only having all of these dates and no relationships, you never have that experience of having someone tell you to your face, hey, you're kind of wishy-washy, or hey, you are a little selfish, or hey, you talk too much, or whatever. He's never been with anybody long enough to really understand what he is not bringing to the table. And that's dangerous when you're in a marriage now, that because no one's ever told you these things, you may assume in your head that there's nothing wrong with you. Never mind the fact that you haven't been in a situation where people can tell you these things. So it's really weird. And again, he should have never been on the show. You were not ready to be married, because you're bringing in all of this negative stuff with you that you don't even know is inside you, because nobody has brought to your attention. Like, it's so frustrating that this man is on this show with a woman who clearly wanted to be married. Sorry, that was my little side. I had to get that off my chest. But Bao said to Pastor Cal, she feels unappreciated. She feels checked out. She feels like she was cheated out of a good marriage. And she feels like Johnny does not have the emotional maturity to be a good husband and father. I'm so happy that Bao is finally getting all the stuff off her chest. I really wish she could say all the stuff to Johnny, but I love that she is finally saying out loud some thoughts that have probably been in her head for a while. Like, you know what? This actually is not working for me. This is what I think. I don't think he was ready, and it sucks because it could have been something great, and I feel cheated. And being honest, and Pastor Cal didn't disagree with her once. He was like, well, you know what? You should ask Johnny if he was ready to be married. And I don't know if I agree with Pastor Cal in terms of you should go to level 1 with communication with him. Like, talk about, level 1 communication is just talking about surface level things without getting too deep with things. And Bao was like, well, that's not how I'm operating, but that's what Pastor Cal told me to do, so I guess I'll try. I don't know if that's necessarily the right advice, because Pastor Cal was like, if you do that, maybe Johnny will open up more. But I don't think it's a matter of Johnny not opening up. Johnny's been very open with the things that he feels and thinks. It's less about Johnny opening up and more about Johnny actually listening to her. That's where I think part of the problem lies. And I don't know how dumbing down her conversation with him is really going to help that. I don't personally see it, but I'm also not an expert. I'm not on the show. What the heck do I know? So Dr. Pepper told Johnny to apologize. Now, he apologized to Bao when they sat down to eat or sat down for a drink. And I'm with her. She was like, I don't believe his apology was sincere. He apologized because that's what Dr. Pepper told him to do. That doesn't mean he's actually sorry for what he said. Because after all this time, however many days have passed since that conversation with Pastor Cal, if he has not apologized up to this point, then that means that he's not sorry. Somebody had to make him apologize. And I felt like Dr. Pepper's standpoint, she should have been like, what you said was me. You should apologize. However, do you feel like she deserves an apology? Do you feel like you should apologize for what she said? That's what she should have asked Johnny. Because his apology came out as, okay, well, the teacher told me to say I'm sorry, so I'm sorry. That's literally how it came off. So I was with Bao like, no, I don't believe this at all. And he asked her, now mind you, he said, I've said mean things to you before, so I'm apologizing. So you can't say, I'm apologizing for mean things I've said in the past and then say something mean within that same conversation. That doesn't make any sense. Because he asked her outright, hey, so what do you think that you can do to make our communication better? Or what do you think, needs to happen? She said, we should try to see each other's perspectives. She wants to feel safe enough to speak her mind without being judged. And she said she feels the root of most of their arguments have been really small things. And she asked him point blank, this is part that made me upset. Several times made me upset. She said, are you willing to show up for this marriage and not run away again? And he looked almost offended like, well, no, I've never run away. I just stepped away to, kind of clear my mind. So let me explain this to you, Johnny, because I'm sure you watched my review. I'm charismatic and I'm honest, and I feel like I give a fair judgment on the people of this show. So Johnny, running away in this instance means that you get up and leave the home that you share with your wife to go back to your house. That is running away. Because in a sense, whenever you get so upset with her and so in your feelings that you need a break, you need to get away from her, you pack your little bag and you leave. You didn't even spend the first night at the new home with your wife. That was essentially running away because everything's just so overwhelming for you. And I'm going to tell you this because I'm sure this is the first episode you're watching of my review and recap, and I thank you for joining me, Johnny. But I will say that the reason why the experts put you guys in a 2-bedroom apartment is so that when you guys do get overwhelmed, which is a natural feeling for this because it is a very accelerated process, very natural and normal to feel overwhelmed with a lot of things coming at you all at once. That part is fair. But that's why they put you in a 2-bedroom apartment so you can go to that bedroom, not to spend the night, but to go in there and kind of get yourself together, gather your thoughts, do your meditation, your writing, your deep breathing, whatever you need to do to gather yourself together. That's why there's a second bedroom. But you going back to your apartment, that's essentially you going back to your single life and acting like you were not married. You are married on a TV show, and yes, it was at first sight, and even though it was at first sight, you knew the person, you're still married. Legally binding marriage. That means you are legally obligated to be in the same space as your wife. Doesn't have to be in the same bed. Again, it just maybe go in the second bedroom, maybe just spending the night in the second bedroom. I mean, I wouldn't suggest it, but even just spending the night in the second bedroom, at least that's showing your wife that you're still there in the apartment. You're still willing to make it work. You're not running back to your previous life just because it's convenient for you. So yes, you have actually run away twice, even though you claim that you have not. So that's the end of the conversation between Mama's Wife 1 and Johnny. And so another thing he said was that he's saying he was ready to get married with the blank slate, meaning a perfect stranger. I'm mentally ready to get married to somebody who I've never met before, who I can get to know and try to make this work. But the fact that he knew her, threw things off for her. And then he said, when I saw you back in the day, because they knew each other years ago, when I saw you was 15 years ago, I knew we didn't have chemistry and I was not attracted to you back then. Otherwise, we would have gone on a second date. Now, you again just apologized 5 minutes ago for saying mean things. So to turn around and say this mean thing that was unnecessary, uncalled for, came out of nowhere, served no purpose whatsoever, that's proof that your apology was because somebody told you to, not because you actually believe she deserved an apology. And then they all meet up to do volleyball, which I thought was just dumb. Why are you still getting together as much as you are? I just don't understand. And I want to see Bao. I think Bao's alluded to things with the other wives. I don't know if she's told them everything, but I would love to see, especially because Gil is so opinionated. I would love to see Bao, Gil, Brett, and Rachel all have a conversation and Bao just spew everything that Johnny has ever said to her. I would love to get all of those people's opinion on what Johnny has said. And I just think it'd be really fascinating and interesting conversation. I know we'll never get that, but I would look because of course Johnny's talking to the husbands and he's giving his side. He never mentions the names that he's called Bao and the mean things he said to her. He only focuses on what she is not doing. So I would love to have her talk to at least one or two of the husbands about what's been going on to kind of get their take on it so that they can really see the whole story. But yeah, they're definitely not gonna make it, and it's so unfortunate because they were the couple. I feel like from the first two episodes, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, they're so cute together, Bao and Johnny forever. Yeah, let's root for them." They are not gonna make it, and it's awful and it sucks. Bao and Johnny will not make it. Meryl and Gil most likely will make it. Zach and Michaela are completely doomed. Brett and Ryan are not going to make it at all. I want Brett actually to leave because she's just tired of Ryan's ish. Um, Rachel and Jose, I don't want them to make it, but I think they probably will. So that's my review, my recap, Married at First Sight, Season 13, Episode 13. If you guys have comments, please leave them down below. I love when we all talk about this show together because you guys give me such great insight. And I'm just like, wow, I never thought about that. So I love it. So continue to keep the comments coming. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Please share. I definitely want to get my numbers up. I'm trying to do this whole content creative thing. So if you guys can share my video, I would absolutely love it and appreciate it. Feel free to tag me if you want. I'll make sure I put my IG handle at the bottom. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks. Peace.